Not so long ago you could look out over the harbour at Ardglass in Northern Ireland and see perhaps 400 or 500 fishing boats unloading their catch of herrings. Today it's a very different picture. Dwindling stocks of fish and tight quotas have severely reduced the fleet. Now only some 30 boats sail out of Ardglass to fish the Irish Sea and beyond. Van Morrison fans will know he sang about stopping off at Ardglass for a couple of jars of mussels and some potted herrings in case we get famished before dinner. Christine Finn says the great hunt for herring once shaped the lives of countless families, including her own.
In the fishing village of Ardglass, south of Belfast, they like to tell the tale of the local man who, in 1851, found the biggest gold nugget in California. John Hughes returned home from the rush, sold his find for a fortune, and set up as a trader of goods to Russia. There's still a thriving trade between Ardglass and Russia today, not thanks to gold, but to the silver darlings, the name for the herring which made Ardglass one of the busiest fishing ports in Ireland. Today the herring caught in the Irish Sea are processed at local fish factories and exported to the Baltic. I've a soft spot for Ardglass. I'd heard the tale at my grandfather's knee that our family was once part of its fishing industry. Grandpa Finn told me that his father, my great-grandfather, ran a fishing boat between Ardglass and the Scottish port of Campbelltown, just across the Irish Sea. The children were born where the fish were, he told me, explaining why he was born in Scotland and his sisters in Ireland. Many from Ardglass and Campbelltown sailed on even further, for new lives in America, New Zealand and Australia. I snagged a harbour view room at a bed and breakfast and headed to the local bar to start my research. It turned out the fortunes of Ardglass have ebbed and flowed with the fishing. Once you could walk the harbour from one side to another simply on boats, I was told. Hundreds of boats out there. But the story about my great-granddad stood up. He would have been one of the drifters, fishermen who followed the shoals each season, sometimes captaining their own boats, other times working on them. Women stayed ashore. They were thought to be unlucky at sea, and sometimes they still are. But those herring girls were also drifters, many crossing Ireland to spend summer days gutting fish, thousands and thousands, and packing them in baskets. Sometimes they also landed a fisherman and stayed. But now the local boats chug out to sea for prawn. The herring is left to the trawlers who chase it to the Isle of Man and employ the new transient workers from Poland and the Philippines. Today the nets are tangled up with the EU bureaucracy of fishing quotas and licensing laws which insist decommissioned boats are destroyed. If I couldn't go to sea, what could I see? I asked the owner of a characterful 24-hour corner shop, which sold everything from smoke bombs and fishing line to a postcard montage of Ardglass and herring inspired by the Van Morrison song Coney Island. He did some calculations with the tide tables and said the trawler would be in at 4 a.m. That night I left my bedroom curtains and window open and listened. Sudden activity, lights and a crane manoeuvring, and then the chugga-chugga-chugga of a trawler coasting in. I rushed to the dock, and there she was, the huge 21st century herring boat, tons and tons of silver darlings in her belly. I breathed in the brine as the herring were pumped out of the trawler, straight into one of the tanker lorries which grind their way between harbour and the fish factories. I introduced myself, and my great-grandfather, to one of the trawlermen. "Have you brought a bag?" He was offering me some herring from the catch. "That's plenty, thanks," I called as the scales flew sparkling into the black plastic. I padded back to the guest house beside the fish factory workers, just as dawn was breaking. I could hardly leave my hall in my centrally heated room, so had a surreal moment looking for a place to hide it from cats amongst the flower pots in the front garden. After breakfast I retrieved the salty stash just as the house cat strode purposefully towards it. My landlady fried me 2 of the herring for lunch. Bliss. She mentioned that the fish was hard to find fresh in Ardglass these days. So after a few days of interviewing and befriending locals, being bought drinks and invited out to dinner, what better gift for my host than something almost as rare as that historic gold nugget? a dozen silver, freshly gutted Ardglass herring.
And with Christine Finn proving much too sharp for the Ardglass cat, we've reached the end of another edition.